Hey guys, YouTuber100 here. Alright, now continuing Nickelodeon with another Nickelodeon movie review. Here I am with a review of Rugrats Go Wild. So, when this when this movie was announced and when I first saw the trailer for this movie, yeah, I was actually pretty excited for it. I mean, yeah, this is of course a crossover movie with Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys, and I really like the shows. So, yeah, when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was pretty excited to see it. I mean, the idea just sounded really awesome, seeing Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys together in a movie. So, I was pretty excited to see this movie when it was first released. And then, after going to see it, you really well, okay, let me just talk a little bit about it. So, yeah, I've told you before, really did like the first two Rugrats movies, and I really did like how they were in connection with the show. And with the Wild Thornberrys movie, I did think it was, okay, as I said. But, yeah, it really was not really in connection with the show and really just acted as really a standalone story. And plus, when that movie came out, the show was just, in its final season. So, yeah, there's that. And then, yeah, by the time this movie was released, both shows, Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys, were really coming to the end of the road. At the time this movie was released, both shows only had, a few episodes left. If they even had any episodes left. I mean, yeah, by the time that this movie was released, both shows were just about over. Yeah. So, yeah, this movie really does not have any connection with the show, because both shows were really coming to the end of their run. So, yeah, it's kind of like a standalone thing. So, yeah, this movie, it just really did not do that well. Oh, I mean, yeah, it's really a big drop down from the first two Rugrats movies, and even a really big step down for the Wild Thornberrys movie. I mean, this movie didn't do nearly as well as either the first two Rugrats movies or the Wild Thornberrys movie. I mean, this movie was a pretty big step down for a lot of people, and I do kind of feel the same way about it. I mean, as I said, I liked the idea of having Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys together in a movie. I mean, I did think it was a very awesome idea. Yeah, and yeah, both of these shows were under the same production company. I mean, both of these shows were done by a Klasky Supo Productions. Is that how it's said? So yeah, it did make sense why they actually did this crossover and how they were able to do it, since both shows were done by the same animation company. But in a sense, that's also kind of something that really asks a lot of questions. Really, I mean, this movie does reveal that both Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys do take place in the same universe. But if they do, does that mean that every single Nickelodeon cartoon that Klasky Supo has made is all taking place in the same universe? I mean, they made, of course, Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys. They also did Ariel Monsters and Rocket Power and As Told by Ginger. Does that mean that all of these shows take place in the same universe? I mean, that just really lifts. I mean, it really just raises that question if they do. I mean, because since this movie does show that Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys does take place in the same universe, do all of the shows that Klasky Supo made for Nickelodeon do that? Yeah, I remember in an episode of Rugrats, they did have the characters from Ariel Monsters in an episode where the babies were telling scary stories. I do remember they made an appearance, so I guess it could mean that all of the shows from this animation company do take place in the same universe, but it is never, but we've never actually found out anything. At least I haven't. Yeah, yeah, and yeah. And plus, there's also like kind of problems with this movie that also raises some questions. Like this movie shows that Tommy real he really does like the show, nature show that Nigel has on TV. Yeah, it's shown that Nigel is really kind of Tommy's role model, but I mean that really just doesn't make a lot of sense because Tommy never once watched Nigel's nature show in Rugrats at all. I mean the regular show. I mean we never saw Tommy watch it once. So how does that really make any sense for Tommy to really be like this obsessed? Well, not obsessed, but really do like Nigel this much. Much when we never even saw Tommy watch him once, aside from this movie. Yeah, I mean, it just really doesn't make a lot of sense, really. Really, and yeah, as I said, this was just when both shows were really coming to their end of the road. There was like just like maybe a few select episodes left. So, as I said, this movie is not in connection with really either show at all, Rugrats or Wild Thornberrys. Just like with the Wild Thornberrys movie, this movie just kind of stand alone from either show. So there's that. And, and yeah, something else that's kind of like aggravating about this movie, it just makes I see them make like a bunch of references to like several different other movies or shows. Like this movie makes references to stuff like Jaws, Taxi Driver, Looney Tunes, Star Wars. I mean, yeah, it just makes a lot of references to other things, and it just kind of makes this movie look pretty desperate for itself. You didn't really see. I mean, yeah, there were like the references and spoofs in the first two Rugrats movies. There was like the Indiana Jones reference at the beginning of the first Rugrats movie, and there was also like the Godfather reference in the second movie. But I mean, they didn't like do stuff like this where reciting lines or just making references to other shows like this. I mean, they didn't like rely on it throughout the entire movie, and it seems like this movie does. I mean, the references in this movie are just scattered around all over the place. Yes. And also, probably one thing that this movie is probably most known for is that Spike does talk in this movie. I mean, yeah, since Eliza, of course, has her power to talk to animals, well, she is, of course, able to talk to Spike. And, yeah, Spike is voiced by Bruce Willis in this movie. And, yeah, like, it did, I guess it did kind of sound like a creative idea to have Spike talk in this movie, but I mean, he does get kind of annoying in this movie. I mean, there are just some times where he just never shuts up, and it just like he just really starts becoming very distracting and annoying. So, yeah, the idea of Spike talking really just wasn't done very well, I don't think. Yeah, this movie, yeah, I mean, and also this movie is like they do like acknowledge that the Wild Thornberrys movie did happen because they actually do acknowledge in this movie that Debbie does remember Eliza's secret power to talk to animals. Yeah, they mention that very briefly, but it's only that. I mean, that's the only thing that really does actually acknowledge that this movie like does follow events from the Wild Thornberrys movie, but nothing really to say like follows the events of Rugrats. I mean, you do see all, of course, all the main characters there. There's like still like Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, Angelica, Susie, Dill, Kimmy, and all the parents are there. So yeah, they do like yeah, you'd still see like all the main characters from both Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys. So as I said, it is kind of nice and pretty cool, awesome to see all of them together. And something that I guess I can appreciate about this movie was that this did like start to lead to other Nickelodeon crossovers that were really just on TV. Like they did some crossover TV movies on Nickelodeon. There were like the three Jimmy Timmy Power Hour specials, which were crossovers of Fairly Odd Parents Jimmy Neutron, and there was also I Party with Victorious, which was a crossover of iCarly and Victorious. And so, oh yeah, it did kind of like spawn some other Nickelodeon crossovers. So I guess that's something that I can appreciate about this movie. But this movie, it's not really like an awful movie, but it's still like not really that great. Yeah, I would probably give this movie 2.25 stars out of 4. Yeah, I just yeah, it's really like not as good as the first two Rugrats movies, and yeah, not even as good as the Wild Thornberrys movie. And yeah, just some of the choices that they make for this, it's just kind of like, oh, I mean, yeah, you have like Nigel getting amnesia and just kind of acting like a baby, which is not really the smartest thing to do. You know what I mean, you have like Donnie and Chucky be like together in this movie. Like Donnie is like doing stuff with Chucky's clothes, and yeah, Chucky is like coming across Donnie, which is weird. Yeah, I mean, Angelica like or with Debbie was kind of cool because I mean they're basically like the same character, basically like the snotty characters who don't like what they're doing and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does have like some creative things to it, and it does have like some humor to it, but other times it just kind of gets real childish and kind of gross out. Like, there was a thing where, like, Nigel is blowing like a big booger bubble from his nose, which was just gross. And, yeah, it's like some other kind of gross things in this movie, too, so yeah, just like some of the choices they make and some of the gross out attempted humor just really doesn't make this movie as good as I really think it could have been. But yeah, it just still does have like some like creative things and things that are good about it. Alright, so yeah, let me just get right into it. So the movie opens with Tommy impersonating Nigel, and he's like trying to spoof his nature show. And the other babies are with Tommy and filming him and stuff. And then they like run into a couple of wild animals, like a tiger and a crocodile. And yeah, they like run off from them, and then they end up falling in quicksand, and they all almost end up getting attacked by the tiger. And then it showed it's just one of their imagination fantasies. And Angelica just told Tommy that he would never end up like Nigel at all. And yeah, it showed that Tommy briefly watching in Nigel's nature show. And then, like, all the Rugrat families are, like, of course, Tommy and Dill's family and Chucky, Kimmy's family, and yeah, Phil and Lo's family. Yeah, they're all like packing up to go on the Lipschitz cruise. And that's what they are believing that Stu got them ticket for their vacation for, and it shows that Susie is also coming along with them. And when they arrive at the dock for the Lipschitz cruise, it shows that Stu isn't around right now, and they believe that Stu was just taking Spike for a last walk before taking off, and then it shows that the cruise ship leaves without them. And then Stu reveals his real vacation plans, and he arrives with a ramshackle boat that he called the SS Nancy. Stu told them that that's their actual mode of transportation for and that's their actual vacation. And all the parents are pretty angry about Stu not telling them about what his actual plans were. And they try to make contact through radio with the Lipschitz crews, and they end up getting signal, but then it shows that they're actually getting in contact with Thornberry's conby. Yeah, Debbie is trying to get Marianne and to know about it, and of course, like Nigel was doing some more stuff for his nature show, and then later that night, like the Rugrats family, he's all while they're on the water, they then come in contact with a massive 40-foot wave during a storm. And then they all just try to find some in a safe place inside the boat. Oh, and during all that, Chaz said the line, "We're gonna need a bigger boat," referencing Jaws. And then they eventually abandon the ship with an inflatable raft. And yeah, of course, Stu is blamed for what's happened and everything going wrong. And then, they lose hope of being saved. And then the next morning, they then arrived on a supposedly uninhabited island. And it turns out that they're actually on the exact same island the Thornberrys are on. And then Nigel and Marianne need to find a clouded leopard to film for Nigel's nature show. And during that, Debbie was just telling Nigel and Marianne that she's just unhappy with their life and she just wants a family vacation. And then Nigel and Marianne told Debbie and Eliza that once they find the clouded leopard or get footage of it, then they'll go on a family vacation. And on the beach of the island, of course, Stu is still being ridiculed and blamed for what has happened with them, since we're basically stranded on the island. And then everybody just decides to make Betty the leader of their plans on how to get off the island. And then just has Stu watch all the babies. And then Stu decided that with what he still had in his pocket, like a razor blade, a disposable razor, and a pen and stuff, that he may be able to actually make a radio to make contact to get them off the island. And then Tommy then discovers that they're actually nearby the place that they last saw Nigel be at for his nature show. So Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, Kimmy, Susie, and Dill then all set off to try to find Nigel because they believed he's on the island. And then Angelica then stayed behind, but then she eventually realized that she needed to look after them because if anything happened to them, she'd get in trouble. And so Angelica and stormed off also. And then she eventually came across Debbie and Darwin. And Angelica was just trying to pass off to Debbie that she was an island princess that was stuck on the island also. And so and she felt that Debbie could actually show Angelica other ways to be more bossy, since Debbie was pretty much the exact same way to Darwin. And at one point, Chucky then just inadvertently got separated from the rest of the Rugrats, and then he ended up getting dirty. And as Chucky was trying to wash his clothes off in a lake or something, he then saw Donnie in through a waterfall, and Donnie was making the exact same moves that Chucky was doing, and Chucky felt that Donnie was just his reflection. And Donnie just ended up taking all of Chucky's clothes and his glasses with this and putting them on. I just leave, and Donnie just left his normal like leopard shorts with Chucky, and yeah, Chucky of course just put those on. And Spike then went off. He just tried to find the babies too by just trying to sniff after them, but he was like constantly sneezing, so he couldn't smell out the babies. So he used to follow them like that. And as Darwin went off to try to tell Eliza that Angelica was there, Eliza and Angelica, not Eliza and Darwin, sorry, then saw Spike like on the island, and they went to see him, and Spike then did speak to Eek, and then he discovered that Eliza could talk to animals, and then Spike told Eliza and Darwin that he's looking for his babies. He's on the island. And Eliza and Darwin thought that Spike meant he's looking for puppies. And so Eliza and Darwin agreed to help Spike look for his babies. And eventually then, and like there was a thing where then Donnie then came across the Rugrats, and yes, Donnie was still like wearing all of Chucky's clothes, and all the Rugrats still took Donnie for Chucky. And Nigel was also like nearby on a steep cliff, and he could hear Donnie's chattering. And then Nigel then saw all the Rugrats, and then he tried to go down to help them, but then Nigel ended up just falling down the cliff. And then a coconut ended up falling on Nigel's head. And then Nigel then just started suffering from amnesia, and he just acting like basically another baby. And as Eliza, Spike, and Darwin were still looking for the babies, they then came across a clouded leopard Siri. And Spike, of course, since he never saw like any wild animals, he just believed Siri was just a regular house cat. And then Spike then revealed that he was looking for human babies, and then Siri then just went off to find the Rugrats. And then, yeah, Eliza and Darwin then realized what they were actually really looking for. And so Eliza, Darwin, and Spike all just were just racing to find the Rugrats. And then as Angelica was ordered by Debbie to go get her another drink, then Angelica saw that the babies were nearby and they were really high up, and so she got Debbie to like drive her back home in the convy, and Eliza, Spike, and Darwin all just like ran right in front of the convy, and it caused Debbie to swerve and just end up having the convy fall in the water. But of course, like they were able to, yeah, the convy's he's like thing that allows them to float in the water, you know. Then Angelica saw the basically submarine thing that they have in the convy that allows them to go underwater. And then Angelica used that to actually like go look for the baby some more. And then it caused Debbie to just spin the convy out of control and had a rock and blow a hole into the floating thing that allows the convy to float. And then it caused the convy to sink, and eventually Chucky then came across Donnie again, and then Chucky told Donnie that he wanted his clothes back, and so Donnie gave Chucky all his clothes and glasses back, but Donnie still had Chucky's shoes on. Oh, yeah, and I should also say, like, before that part, Siri then, then found the babies, but then Donnie ended up just caused Siri to run off, and yeah, Donnie was of course like chasing Siri, and then yeah, that's when what I just said happened. And Donnie gave Chucky his clothes back. Yeah, then eventually Angelica did find Nigel and the babies, and then they all got aboard the inside the submarine, and then after was seeing like the way Nigel was acting with his amnesia, they were thinking that maybe Nigel isn't the same way he is in real life as he is on TV. And then all the Rugrats were just starting to feel really upset, thinking that they may never see their family again. And then Tommy was starting to feel bad because he felt that he's the one that caused it. But all the other babies told Tommy that if it, everything that he has done, he's acting exactly like Nigel, and he should be like a hero. Then that lit up Tommy's enthusiasm again. And Angelica continued to pilot the submarine to try to get them back, and then it just eventually ended up just going down to the bottom of the ocean. And meanwhile, back at the beach, the parents all saw Donnie running around, and then Chaz recognized that Donnie had Chucky's shoes on, so all the parents were trying to chase down Donnie. And then Donnie eventually, he was at Marianne's location, and then all the Rugrats parents then saw Marianne, and they told them that they're looking for their kids. And yeah, Debbie, he was like contacted by Marianne again, and eventually, either Debbie, Eliza, Darwin, and Spike all met up with the parents. And then Stu showed that he had made another radio out of a coconut, and then they were able to make contact with the babies and Nigel. And after Nigel hit his head on the door for the sub, he then regained his memory, and Nigel was able to make contact with Marianne and the parents and all. Yeah. And then Nigel saw that they were down on fuel and almost out of oxygen. And then so yeah, Debbie told Marianne what kind of condition the convoy was in, that it was underwater, and its floater was just its floating device was blown out, and so they tried to figure out a way that they could raise the convoy back up and get it out of the water. And so Spike then swam to get their raft back, and then Stu made a patch from the raft, and then in order to stick it on, Debbie used her gum to stick it back onto the concrete the convy floating device, and then they were able to raise the convy back up, and then they ended up pulling the sub back up out of the water. And as they were being pulled up, Nigel saw a giant squid. And then he tried taking a picture of it, but the picture didn't come out, and Nigel decided that maybe the photo not coming out was for the best anyway, and that this giant squid shouldn't be revealed. And then, the sub was then pulled back up to the surface with the convy, and then all the babies were reunited with their families. And Nigel walked Tommy back to his parents, and all the characters from all the shows were all just bonding with each other. And then Marianne then just told Eliza and Debbie that they're all now going on vacation, and they all decided to go on the Lipschitz cruise together. And I just showed all of them on the Lipschitz cruise, and then Spike just spoke to Eliza one more time, and he said he vowed never to lose the babies again. and that's how it ended. So, yeah, like I said, 2.25 stars out of 4. I mean, it's just, yeah, a lot of the stuff in this movie is just really not done very well, and it can get annoying, and, yeah, it just kind of makes the movie seem pretty desperate at some parts. But, I guess, yeah, there's still, like, some creativity to it, and plus, yeah, just seeing, like, the Rugrats characters with the Wildflower Berries characters, it was still pretty uh, great to see. Alright, so yeah, that does it for my review of Rugrats Go Wild. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.